What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the internet where your cesspool is my jacuzzi. Bruce, I see you're here during wine night. You have earbuds. That's great. As you guys can see, I got my Dave Neal tea behind me that just came in the mail at the end of last week. So I'm going to set it there for the time being. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Sarah Boone, and she's wanting a new trial. Now, I'm not a lawyer, as you guys know, so I don't really pick at the ins and outs of legal procedure and stuff like that. So I'm a layperson. Let's just keep that in mind. I work in mental health and in healthcare. So I'm just, going to share my opinions. And it's not obviously like a clinical diagnosis or anything like that. But we are going to talk a little bit about the psychiatrist in this case and, what her opinions were and what she said that upset opposing counsel so much. Now, the funny thing, if you've been watching this channel, you'll know the funny thing about this is like people were saying Owens was gaslighting, and that's Sarah Boone's attorney is Owens. So this is not Laura Owens, all right? We're talking about a different Owens. They just happen to both like to gaslight people, I guess. Hey, Winks, what's going on? So I've never talked about this before. And I did not do any trial coverage just because I honestly didn't have the time. I've been so busy lately. I've barely this is the first time I've streamed this month. The last time you guys saw me streaming, I was wearing a wig and a red turtleneck. So equality, hey, how's it going? Grandkids Taxi, what's up? Hey, Kelly. Okay, so Sarah Boone was found guilty, as I'm sure you guys all know, but she is asking for a new trial on 5. There are 5 reasons she's asking for a new trial, and we're gonna go over that first, and then I want to talk about 2 of the points that stuck out to me. One of which was one of the family members of the victim, Jorge Torres, kind of broke down a little bit towards the end of the trial and closing arguments because they were showing a video that showed what Sarah did to George. And wait, you aren't wearing a wig. No, I'm not. And they were saying that was like unfair and biased the jury, I think. And then also they're saying that the psychiatrist contradicted her deposition with her testimony at trial, which is where the gaslighting accusation comes in. That's what we're going to look at. So the Chardonnay is delicious. Oh man, I wish I had some. All right. So we have here, hold on. Forgot to share my screen real quick. Okay. We have here the motion for a new trial, but also I know this is there's a lot of legal jargon in here that a lot of us don't understand because if you follow this case for the legal procedures, if you're watching Long Crime Network, which I'm also going to show, but this article I feel like really laid it out well. So we're going to read this real quick. Sarah Boone's lawyer is requesting a new trial, alleging improper rulings by the judge and misconduct by prosecutors after she was convicted of murdering her boyfriend. Now, I don't know how you guys feel, but I always thought she was guilty. Seemed pretty obvious to me based on the video. Sarah, hey, what's up? Redondo Beach, how you doing? Hey, Steph. Okay. So, Boone, 46, was convicted of second-degree murder in the 2020 death of her boyfriend, 42-year-old Jorge Torres Jr., on October 25th. She was found guilty of convincing her boyfriend to get inside a suitcase at a home in Florida, then zipping it shut and refusing to let him out. When she opened the suitcase the next morning, he was dead. So, that's terrifying. First of all, I don't think that you could ever convince me to get in a suitcase. It could be my mother. It could be someone that I trust, with everything not to hurt me, and I would not do it. I just would not do it. So imagine how scared that guy must have been when he was stuck in there. And I don't know, what kind of man Jorge Torres was. I don't really know anything about the guy. What I do know is what she did was intentional, obviously. And I don't really think that it was, justified in any way. I know she, claimed abuse and stuff like that, and I couldn't tell you if that ever happened. But what she did was more than a step too far, obviously. Boone faces a minimum of 22.5 years prison and a potential life sentence. She's scheduled to be sentenced on December 2nd. Boone's lawyer, James Owens, filed a motion for a new trial on Monday. He identified 5 reasons why Boone is entitled to a new trial. And that's Sarah Boone right there. And as you guys know, here it says Boone had gone through 8 attorneys before Owens came on the case, several of whom resigned due to irreconcilable differences. Now, there were a lot of crazy letters that she wrote that people read, and I thought about reading some of those tonight, but unfortunately, this is going to have to be kind of a shorter stream just because I'm so busy right now. As you guys know, I'm leaving soon to go. I'm going to California, stopping there for a couple days, and then to Australia. So I'm doing a lot of work and schoolwork right now. Okay. Multiple attorneys who represented Boone were public defenders, leading Orange County Circuit Judge Michael Kranick to rule out that she has forfeited her right to court-appointed counsel in June. It has become apparent to the court that defendant will not permit herself to be represented by anyone. I mean, it certainly did seem that way. Bruce says, Lauren, get in my suitcase. I mean, my magic fort. Bruce, I miss you. I do threaten my hubs with suitcases. Now that is terrible. All right. So, Owens argued that the ruling violated Boone's Sixth Amendment rights. Should the court determine that the defendant is not entitled to a court-appointed counsel due to misbehavior on the part of the defendant, the court must follow a process which protects the individual's right to due process, as well as the defendant's right to the assistance of counsel, Owens wrote. Okay. Owens said the court had also incorrectly denied his multiple attempts to delay the trial. Well, he knew that going in, though. He joined the case 45 days before the trial started, so he attempted to push the proceeding to a later date to give himself more time to prepare. I'm pretty sure that he knew ahead of time that the trial date was not going to be moved, that this was the time frame. So, counsel, for all purposes, closed his law practice down to prepare for the trial, but due to the short time frame, even with the assistance of other attorneys, was simply logistically unable to be as prepared for trial as he would have liked to be, and as Miss Boone was entitled to, Owens said. Well, I mean, you knew that going in. Again, you knew what you were up against. Okay, this is the part that pissed me off the most. I feel that Owens is grasping at straws, and you're probably right. He probably is just doing his job here. So, like, with the request for a new trial, and her, like, wanting to, like, appeal and all that, like, he's just doing his job at this point. I believe he said he would not represent her. Tilted lawyer. Hey, Omar, how's it going? I'm so done with this lady. Yeah. I believe he said he would not represent her in an appeal. So, like, after the sentencing is done, his job here is done. So he is just doing his job right now. However, I will say during the trial, listening to him talking, I was just kind of like, wow, you're actually, like, your job does not require you to be this much of a dick. So, and here's what really pissed me off. An emotional outburst by a family member of Torres during the trial was also referenced in the motion. Owens requested a mistrial after the family member had an audible reaction to a video taken by Boone while Torres was trapped inside the suitcase. Kranick designed the motion. I might be saying the judge's name wrong, guys. If I am, just tell me. The court did not give any curative instructions or address whether the outburst could adversely affect the jury's deliberations. So, I did not watch the whole trial, but I did watch some of the closing arguments, and I know the story because I'm from Florida, so obviously it's gone around. So I know enough to comment on it, and I saw enough of the trial and enough of Omar's coverage to comment on it. Omar, who, by the way, is still drunk from Flad, which I couldn't join because of work, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that. Guys, if you want to see more of the trial coverage of Sarah Boone, go to Omar, the Tilted Lawyers channel, and he's got some stuff there. But yeah. So this is what pissed me off. It wasn't that much of a distraction. Like, there was no, like, major outburst that drew everyone's attention like away from it to the point that they couldn't really like pay attention to what was going on, or that it would like, you know, I would even argue that it wouldn't really influence an opinion that much, because when you're looking at like the victim's family, whether or not the defendant is guilty, you're going to think, okay, well, I feel sorry for them, but naturally they're going to feel this way because they lost a loved one. Um, to me, it's not necessarily going to indicate, well, now the defendant is definitely guilty because someone is crying. Like, okay, no. So someone, I guess, got upset, and they were, like, they claimed that the person was bent over, and they then left the courtroom. And so, like the prosecutor said, like, it looks like the appropriate action was taken because that person left the courtroom rather than making a scene, like having a huge emotional outburst. I disagree wholeheartedly that this was inappropriate. I feel like that was, I feel like that was like a human response, right? And people don't always know how they're going to react to this kind of negative emotional stimuli. So like you might think, oh, I can handle this, I can handle something, and then you get in front of it and it just hits you a different way than you thought it would. Or sometimes like emotions come to us at different times. Like everybody grieves differently, but especially when you're looking at a video of your loved one, being abused or murdered, it's natural to have a reaction to that. So Kelly says his mom collapsed, her son walked her out. I gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I disagree that was a huge deal. You know what I mean? I mean, it's very sad, but okay. So that pissed me off when I read that. Owens also claimed that the court should not have allowed the testimony of a witness after the state failed to disclose that she had formed a new opinion. And this is highly, highly disputed. He said prosecutors did not advise the defense that Dr. Tanya Werner, a rebuttal expert witness called by the state, had changed her opinion on whether Boone perceived an imminent threat at the time of the offense. Finally, Owens alleged that the prosecution's rebuttal to the defense's closing argument was essentially a second closing argument for the state. Okay, so we're going to take a look at what they're talking about here. Nope, not that one. That's mine. Not that one either. I got this. Okay, there we go. Sorry, guys. Lots of tabs open. Okay. And then after that, I have the transcript. So we'll see what she said here in trial that he's complaining about so much. And then I have the transcript of the deposition here, so we can look at what was actually said. And I disagree that she changed her opinion. I disagree that she said something different than she said in her deposition. But that is just my opinion and my read on things. So here's kind of where it all started. And I'll pause to comment. Okay. She said that she shook the suitcase and that she lost control of it and it flipped.
And then what happened?
Then she said that he stuck two fingers out and her son's baseball bat was sitting there and she picked the bat up and hit his hand.
Then what happened?
And then she went upstairs and waited for him to come upstairs.
All right. Alcohol. Can you tell us what you know about the effects as a medical doctor of ethanol or alcohol on a human body?
Yes. So it causes intoxication, as we all know, and it causes disinhibition. It works on the frontal lobe of the brain and allows us to do things that we wouldn't normally do. It disinhibits us.
And in the course of your practice,
Agree, Sarah.
Have you ever come across a diagnosis of alcohol abuse disorder?
Yes.
And what is that?
Well, alcohol abuse is an old disorder. So we used to use alcohol dependence and alcohol. So the wording here, I guess, is important because this is a court hearing. Lots of people use this interchangeably. Now they'll say alcohol abuse or whatever, but the technical term for it, I believe she'll say, is alcohol use disorder. Just like there's anxiolytic hypnotic use disorder, there's cocaine use disorder. So they just changed the wording a little bit, but it essentially means the same thing. at least from a colloquial standpoint.
Abuse, it's now been combined in the DSM-5. In the DSM-5 TR, it's alcohol use disorder.
In considering what a patient or a client or somebody that you've been asked to evaluate by a government entity, do you take into account that person who's relaying the history to use a consumption of alcohol at the time of the history that they're given?
Yes.
Why is that?
Because again, it affects their behavior and their actions.
Does alcohol have any effect on a person's memory?
It can.
What, if any, relationship is there between acute alcohol use or acute alcohol intoxication and battered spouse syndrome?
Again, it can affect your memory. It can affect your reactions. It can affect.
No, that seems obvious, I'm sure, to all of us who are watching. But the thing is, like, this is court, right? So obviously they have to explain things that might seem obvious to most of the lay people. But if they don't explain things correctly, then maybe they have a reason to go back and say, like, we need a retrial. You know what I mean? So
Your response to different things.
Does the disinhibitory nature of alcohol
I agree, Winks.
Strengthen, weaken, or have no effect on battered spouse syndrome?
It would depend on each individual again.
Generally speaking, it is important as an evaluator to get as much information as possible before rendering an opinion, such as diagnosing somebody with something out of the DSM-5 TR or battered spouse syndrome.
Yes.
In this particular case, did you require any additional information to reach your conclusion about the relationship between battered spouse syndrome and the events of this evening?
I based my opinion on the information that I had. Certainly, if there was more information, my opinion would be subject to change.
And what was your opinion?
My opinion was that she did not give me enough information to diagnose her with post-traumatic stress disorder at the time that I evaluated her at the jail.
Okay, so that's important because he's going to complain about this. Her lawyer, who, by the way, if you guys are watching the lawyer at all, this is Sarah Boone. We're looking at the back of Sarah Boone's head right now. Her lawyer, Owens, is next to her. And the way that he's scribbling on that paper with like these, I feel like they're very large movements. Kind of reminds me of that Charlie Day meme where he has that like big graphic with all the string and the pins on the map and stuff like that. And he's like, oh my God. That's what this makes me think of. But yeah, well, we'll listen back to this one more time. This is very important because this is what they're hinging their need for a new trial on.
To reach your conclusion about the relationship between battered spouse syndrome.
Make sure you guys get the whole question. Hang on. Okay.
Any relationship is there between acute alcohol use or acute alcohol intoxication and battered spouse syndrome?
Again, it can affect your memory. It can affect your reactions. It can affect your response to different things.
Does the disinhibitory nature of alcohol strengthen, weaken, or have no effect on battered spouse syndrome?
It would depend on each individual again.
Generally speaking, it is important as an evaluator to get as much information as possible before rendering an opinion, such as diagnosing somebody with something out of the DSM-5 TR or battered spouse syndrome.
Yes.
In this particular case, did you require any additional information to reach your conclusion about the relationship between battered spouse syndrome and the events of this evening?
I based my opinion on the information that I had. Certainly, if there was more information, my opinion would be subject to change.
And what was your opinion?
My opinion was that she did not give me enough information to diagnose her with post-traumatic stress disorder at the time that I evaluated her at the jail.
And specifically talking about...
People could approach the bench.
Yes.
And this is where her lawyer kind of loses his shit and goes off into a weird frenzy. Okay, and this is the controversy, right? Because they're saying she changed, right here, they're saying what she said there was a different opinion than what she gave in her deposition. And we're going to look at the deposition and see that, in my opinion, that's not true. Okay? But we will watch a little bit of how this plays out first, because I want you guys to see how her lawyer kind of spins out a little bit, in my opinion. Not like full on swearing and freaking out, but, you know, like as far as a lawyer goes, like, I feel like he was kind of like just like spinning threads and like trying to make something stick. And then he did something really weird. Like he didn't object to it afterwards. I don't know. We'll see it. I did want to acknowledge a couple comments here. Natalia says, I've avoided this because it's so awful, but really interested in your perspective. Thank you, Natalia. So I'm not going to show anything super triggering or anything like that. Like most of the stuff that people would consider triggering, I'm not going to show that. We're just going to talk about why she wants a new trial here, and I'm going to show why she wants a new trial and like why I think that's kind of bullshit. But you don't have to worry. I'm not going to show I'm not going to show the videos of her abusing him. I'm not going to, show anything of that nature tonight. So if I did do that, it would be in a different video, and I would definitely state that beforehand. So we're all good here. Bruce says, do they call it dipsomania anymore? Dipsomania, that's like an old term for alcohol use disorder, kind of. But technically now they call it alcohol use disorder. So I have not heard anyone use that word in a long time. I used to work at a desk next to a counselor who had been with the center that I was working at for like 30 plus years, longer than I had been alive at that point. And I've heard her say that. All right. But I have never, heard anyone in the hospital setting, the ER setting, use that language. And I don't know if that's also because they're required to use the up-to-date terms, obviously. And so, but I don't hear that word tossed around that much. But, I don't think you're old. All right. And then Kelly said, she should have taken the plea. She'd be out in 5 years. Well, I agree. But when you read this deposition, we're going to see also that like the psychiatrist herself said, Sarah Boone has narcissistic traits. She didn't have enough to diagnose her with narcissistic personality disorder. She was very careful with her wording there. But she did say that Sarah Boone has narcissistic traits. Now, do I think she has narcissistic personality disorder? Yes, as an observer. Yeah, I do. And I don't feel, too irresponsible in saying that, because it seems to me that, this psychiatrist, like closely examined everything that she was willing to share. And it sounds like Sarah was difficult to work with, which is not surprising given the number of attorneys she went through. And the psychiatrist came to that conclusion. So like, it's basically like there was maybe like one or two traits that she didn't provide information that the psychiatrist would need to diagnose her with narcissistic personality disorder. That's what it sounded like to me. But the thing is, like, the fact that she didn't say what she should say, like maybe she didn't say how she felt because she knew how it would come across, or she didn't provide all the information she needed to provide to get an accurate diagnosis. That doesn't mean she doesn't have narcissistic personality disorder. It just means the psychiatrist is only working with the information that she is given, especially in this legal context where it's going to be closely scrutinized. Bruce, how many different kinds of antlers do you have? I want to know that too. Omar says, get ready for an endless set of appeals over the course of the next 20 years. She's never getting out. I think she's getting a life sentence. I hope she does, dude. I hope she does. I think she deserves it. Thank you, Reg Angel, for stopping in. I appreciate you. And thank you to all the other mods who are here tonight, especially Bruce, who's here during Wine Club. Tell everyone at Wine Club hi. Okay. So I'm going to watch, we're going to see some of this play out. So there's this like intermission here. I call it an intermission. That's obviously not what it's called. It's a stage thing, but there's this intermission here. The jury has to leave so they can have this conversation.
And I said on line 39, well, doctor, I'm trying to ability.
Okay.
So much for your patience.
All right, here we go. And that, obviously is the psychiatrist right there who is about to like just sit there basically while this guy complains about her. And I think that her facial expressions, well, like you could argue that it's just her face. Like, how some people have resting, bitch face or annoyed face or whatever. I think that she is like doing her best not to just be like, oh my God, you're so stupid. But they're pretty funny.
Members of the jury, thank you so much for your patience. I have a matter I have to discuss with counsel outside of y'all's presence. It may take a little bit more time than
Who's going to pay for all the appeals? We are.
just our conference up here, and we don't want to have y'all just hanging out waiting for us to figure out what we're going to do next. So I appreciate your patience. We're going to excuse you to the deliberation room at this time. Please do not conduct any independent investigation or research as to the person, places, things, or charge involved, and do not have any conversations amongst yourselves or anyone else about those things, and we'll bring you back in as promptly as possible. Thank you.
I do like this judge, and you'll see the way that he kind of conducts himself and keeps things on track in a second is very professional. He's not rude, but he's direct. Please note the difference. Hannah from Love is Blind.
Well, and Judge, it applied to every opinion she was going to express. It started on page 37, line 24. As it relates to Sarah Boone, do you have any diagnosis as it relates to her? And then 38 is when she started talking about a generalized anxiety disorder, and that she was not for sure whether Sarah Boone had a generalized anxiety disorder versus if it was just an adjustment disorder to being in jail. And then she also mentioned in that same answer that Sarah Boone had some narcissistic personality traits.
And that's what I was talking about earlier.
That those were my two major diagnoses. And then I questioned her further about that. She explained again on line 17 about general anxiety disorder versus the adjustment disorder, and that I hadn't had time to fully formulate that opinion of it. Line 21, I need time to go through my notes and think about it and process it.
Page. We're still on page 38?
38, line 21. I need time to go through my notes, think about it, process it. But I had other depositions, as you're aware, yesterday, so I had to prepare for those and go through that. So I have not had time to process on my notes. And I said on line 39, well, doctor, I'm trying not to inconvenience you. You know, we're set for trial October 7th for jury selection.
So he is making it sound like she was kind of impatient and unreasonable, but when we read the actual transcript, you'll see that he was kind of a douche. Like the way he's reading it right now, he makes himself sound kind of like innocent and, oh, I didn't mean to inconvenience you. But like, no, he was being a complete asshole.
Line 6, I anticipate your testimony would be until a little later. So we could discontinue the deposition and then reset it when you've got time to review. Because obviously I'm not going to want to take your deposition and you have other opinions that are not going to be covered. And then I asked, looks like Mr. J asked, what's your position? He said, conducting discovery after the jury trial starts is completely unacceptable to me. So that's my position. If she needs to issue a supplemental report, or if there has become a need for a second deposition, then we can address that. But it would be my position that we need to get this done because the state doesn't have any appellate rights once jury is sworn and jeopardy attaches. And I say on line 23 of page 39, well, you obviously understand my position. I'd like to finish the deposition today as well. But if she is holding out that she may have other opinions and other diagnosis after she has had more time to think.
So my issue with this is like, he's essentially saying like that she's being unreasonable because she may form a different opinion if she's given more information. And she's like operating on the information that she has, and she's giving her, clinical opinions to the best that she can. But he's basically like saying like, I have an issue because she might think something else later. She's holding out on me. So he says after she has had more time to think and review the paperwork. So like, I don't know. I feel like he's just being a dick. because obviously, like, nobody's going to be able to share every single opinion that they might have in the future right away. And she has to operate here only on what she's given. So she's doing the best that she can.
Review the paperwork, then obviously that creates an issue. And then she said,
Hey, General T, how you doing?
but if that happens, I can bring that forward. And then you can add to your deposition at that point, if my opinions change after having reviewed further. And I refer to Mr. J. Page 9 of 40, Mr. J says, I think we plow ahead. This is our time with her. Court reporter's prepared to give us a transcript by the end of the week. Something needs to be amended.
End of the weekend.
End of the weekend. If something needs to be amended, then she can A, issue a report. B, if we need to take a deposition, an abbreviated deposition on the limited subject matter she is not prepared to testify about on today, then we can do that. But the notion of halting a deposition that is set for 3 hours and then doing a 3-hour deposition during trial, especially after jeopardy is attached, is not what the state would do. Then I respond on page 40, line 23. I'm not suggesting that, Mr. J. I'm suggesting what you just said at the very beginning, which is let's finish. But if she has some supplement, then I would want to take a brief second deposition as it relates to any new diagnosis or opinions. Mr. J.
So he's upset because he thinks she's holding out on any other, diagnoses or opinions she may form after more time to review the material and think. But they're saying to this attorney, like, if that happens, I would take a brief deposition to get, any new diagnoses or opinions. So basically he's just being a whiny little douchebag in my opinion, but like I'm not, like I said, I'm not a lawyer, so there might be a little bit more at play here legally. I don't know if Omar is still with us. Wow, Lauren. I don't know if Omar is still with us, but if he is, maybe he could tell us. But yeah. Tear Dad says, I think Dr. Werner was great. She had the only accurate assessment of Boone and she never changed a single word of her opinion. Owens is a liar. And we're going to take a close look at that. So, but I've heard that a lot. I've heard that she had the most accurate assessment, and lots of people have that opinion. So,
Response on page line 4. Okay. What I'm understanding her to say is right now there has been a previous diagnosis of an adjustment disorder in some of the records, and she just needs to review her records to see if she thinks that is the best diagnosis that she would give, as opposed to a generalized anxiety disorder. And then the witness says, you essentially flipped that, Mr. J, upside down. You got
hey, Omar.
backwards. So we go on to page 42. Line 1, Mr. Owens, I agree. And Dr. Werner, just let the state attorney know.
Okay, but we're skipping a massive portion of 41.
Okay.
Yeah, so the judge here is pointing out that he's skipping a huge part of the transcript. And then also, as the judge will, I believe, I recall the judge pointing this out, the question was relating to PTSD, and this guy is going off on some, like, real big tangents. So yeah.
That addresses specifically opinions
Let me go back.
as it relates to generalized anxiety disorder.
Okay, the witness starts on line 15. So she's saying she has the generalized anxiety disorder, and I'm saying I want to review it more. Because Sarah Boone had disclosed to the doctor that she had been previously diagnosed with a generalized anxiety disorder. And so the doctor, Werner, was considering that admission, but she was saying, I want to review it more to see if I think it's more of an adjustment disorder to being in jail, Judge, to being in the correctional setting right now. And that the stressors that she is under right now, as opposed to a generalized anxiety disorder. So Mr. J says on line 22, okay, so on this topic, if something new comes up, then we can address it. But if you have other topics to depose her on, then I suggest we go on. And then page 42, line 1, that's when I say I agree.
This guy's pretty insufferable. He's going to keep going on for a little bit. If he goes on for too much longer, I'll skip to where the judge starts talking. Tear Dad says, I think Judge K knew she didn't change her opinions. He let Owens have his discovery violation to keep the defense happy. I have heard that too. Karen Karsten, thank you for the 5. I can diagnose Sarah as having murderer disorder without any more deposition. Oh, man. Okay.
I agree, and Dr. Werner, just let the state attorney know. I know that you may be, we are on short time. If you do review your notes over the weekend or whatnot, and formulate any other opinions, just let the state attorney know, and I will address it.
We'll address it.
And we'll address it. Line 7, the witness, Dr. Werner says absolutely. And then.
Like the judge's little interjections there.
Continue reading, or
If there's portions you want to highlight for me, I mean, I have the transcript. I'm following along with you.
that was the general understanding that we had about all diagnoses, all opinions that she may have. And so.
I actually didn't hear him say anything about battered spouse syndrome or PTSD once in that rant. So just saying.
She starts talking about the mental status exam that she gave her, and then she.
Actually, he might have mentioned PTSD. I might be stupid. I'm not sure.
Page 43, line A, she said she has narcissistic personality disorder traits. Or I asked that question, That's how she answered. She goes through a little bit of that.
I'm sorry. Is he just attending this deposition for the first time? What is going on here, dude?
And then she, paraphrasing, she talks about the grandiose component of criteria that she met. And then on page 45, I asked her what other criteria, on line 1, would tend to indicate that she was a narcissist. And the answer by Dr. Werner, I didn't say that she was. I said that she has narcissistic traits. And that was the examples. That was.
Excuse me for interrupting, but can we lasso this back in?
I understand that's what the depo reflects, but the non-objection which led to objection pertains to an opinion specifically about post-traumatic stress disorder.
And that's why I'm complaining about his rambling, because the judge is also just kind of like, dude, what are you doing? Like, this is not even what we're talking about right now. Karen Carson says, we're listening to evaluations of Laura Owens, Amber Heard. So similar, maybe Amber can play Sarah in the mockumentary. I don't think anyone should hire Amber Heard to play anyone, much less herself. Bruce says that was before his time. Sound familiar? I think this guy's a lot chattier than David Gingras, but I do see some similarities for sure. Thank you, Sarah.
At this time, no opinion is being referenced, nor does the call of the question pertain to narcissistic personality traits or diagnosis of narcissism. The question pertains to PTSD.
Oops.
All right, page 46.
Oh, let's read some more. That'll help.
Line 1, question, okay? Do you feel like she suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder? Line 3, answer. She didn't give me criteria with regards to that. She discussed having fear and anxiety of his family and fear that they would come into the jail or have someone else come into the jail and harm her. She talked about that. And she spoke about, having recollections, remembering abuse from George during the evaluation. Question 13, line 13 on 46.
Nah, he sees what you're talking about, man. You're just being like a little bit annoying. General T, did you just have surgery? I feel like you said you were having surgery, so I hope you are doing better. But I do love how the judge is just kind of like, oh my God, this guy's still talking.
But you don't believe that she suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder, in your opinion? Answer, line 15, no. I would have to look back through my notes to see if she fully met the criteria. Question, line 17. Can you explain why you don't think she suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder? Answer, line 19. No, I didn't say one way or the other.
This is where I think the lawyer is just so annoying. But pay close attention to this part. Let's back up a few seconds. This part's important. I know he's rambling a lot, but this part is important.
Question, line 17. Can you explain why you don't think she suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder? Answer, line 19. No, I didn't say one way or the other. I would have to look back through my notes for that. Line 21, question. Is that something that you may, in the future, give an opinion about?
Oh, look
after
at this
some
lady.
time
She's like,
reflecting
oh my
and
God.
Reviewing your notes. Line 24, answer, I may.
It's like, oh my God, I'm so tired of this.
Number 25, question. Okay.
I like that little peek at him.
And that's something you will let the lawyers know about if that changes. Answer, line 2 of page 47, yes. That's specific to the post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay.
So at the time of
So Omar says the lawyer is annoying, but he's not bad. Okay, so I take annoyance as like you're like a not like a bad person necessarily, but you're basically like you like to be a nuisance and you're like flailing all over the place. But that's why I said I'm not a lawyer. Like I don't really. There's a lot that I don't understand about small procedural details in the law and stuff like that. In fact, I get most of my legal stuff from Omar now. So yeah, so. That lady handled herself well. I thought she did. Judge K looks like he's biting his tongue. I agree with that. Oh, General T, I had 2 new discs put in my neck. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're doing better. Teardad, the problem also arises that the defense's expert was the worst kind of sock puppet who let herself be manipulated by Sarah and whose testimony was that Sarah is a victim. Yeah, I don't think anybody thought that, right?
this deposition, when I asked her specifically,
So what's the legal objection? What are the legal grounds of the objection?
Crickets.
I would not take that deposition, Judge. When she said, I have not had time sufficiently to answer these questions, these diagnoses, these opinions, if this wasn't set for a definitive date that you had already told me it's not going to be continued, I would refuse to take that deposition. But under the promises from the state,
What are the legal grounds of your objection? I'm familiar with the background. I'm familiar with the time frame. I'm familiar with all the dates and the depots and the coordination and everything we had to do to get this all teed up before trial. What are the legal grounds of your objection? I understand the backdrop.
Okay, Omar says he's trying to nail the expert and disqualify her testimony so that his expert, who said she suffered from battered spouse syndrome, would be the only expert testimony on record of the matter. It didn't work. Obviously not. And then Teardad says Dr. Harding was the defense expert. She was pathetic. She said it never occurred to her that Sarah might lie to her. I actually didn't see Dr. Harding's testimony. I read about it. I listened to people recap it, but I actually didn't see it. But the thing is, I will say, with mental health experts, with forensic psychologists, anything like that that you're using in a trial, let's remember that they have limited information, and the defendant in these cases are not likely to tell them things that might be bad for their case. So these people have a kind of a limited scope to work with, first of all, and second, talking to someone in a jail for a little bit, a handful of times, is not going to be the same as seeing someone in a clinical setting repeatedly and really getting to know that person and kind of forming a trusting relationship where they will tell you things that you need to know to make an accurate diagnosis. I'm not saying they always get it wrong. I'm not saying that by any means, but at this point, given that these people are usually hired and there's different sides that have their own experts or whatever, it's basically like two people pointing a gun at each other, right? They both got an expert opinion, and I don't say expert facetiously. I just mean they both got an expert opinion. I don't know why I did the air quotes. And those opinions, because they belong to the other side, they're going to cancel each other out. Now, there is the issue of their experts saying, hold on, where was it? Oh, yeah. There is the issue of their experts saying it never occurred to her that Sarah might lie to her, which really hurts their case, in my opinion. But I can only speak to, like, I can't speak to, like, the legal implications or whatever to a T. But as far as, like, the psychiatrist's role goes and how accurately someone can diagnose a person when they only know them for, months, or in this case, maybe less than that, or whatever. Like, there's only so much they can do. There's only so much of an accurate picture they can get. And so I can speak to that, because it does take building a relationship with somebody, not a personal relationship, but a professional relationship, for them to really understand fully who this person is, what makes them tick, and, like, what kind of diagnosis they fit. Omar says, is Gingras still doing the Twitter thing? Yes and no. Not too much in the last week or so, but he is saying still that he's going to do a YouTube thing. And I actually thought he was going to reach out to you, Omar, but I don't know. And while I have you guys here, Gingras is saying maybe he'll go on someone else's YouTube channel to explain his appeal brief after he files it. He wants to do that because he wants to debunk the nonsense YouTubers are putting out there. And, like, first of all, if you go on a YouTuber's channel, how does that help? And second, I would advise everyone to stay away from that. David Gingras is reckless and does not care at all about the people that his client has hurt. And so if any of us were to have David Gingras on their channel, it would only be giving him more of an opportunity to hurt Greg, Mike, and Clayton. Mike especially, who came out and said, I was going to speak to this man. He was going to speak to David Gingras, until David Gingras on Twitter published private personal details of the relationship between him and Laura Owens. And make no mistake, Laura Owens abused Michael Maricini. Just because Mike was the man, doesn't mean that he can't be abused. She was the abuser. So he re-traumatized Mike by bringing that back, posting pictures of them in an interview from their past. And there was no reason for him to do that. So if anybody gives David Gingras a platform, that is what he'll do. He will take that opportunity to hurt Laura's victims. And so I would say, like, no matter how educated you are and how well you think you might be able to handle him, no matter what you think you might be able to pull off, don't do it, because it's not worth hurting the people that matter. You know what I mean? Omar says he's not reaching out to me. No chance. Wasn't he supposed to do an interview with the JFC rep? Yeah, that kind of died down. He tried to release those voicemails from Mike's mother to distract from the fact that he was not going to be able to do that. But he's, blowing hot air. So. Okay. Anyways, back to Judge Creek.
I mean, I don't know if there's a legal ground other than we had an agreement as attorneys, as parties, that I would.
I like Dr. Berry.
Change of opinion, and I would be allowed
I agree.
to take a second deposition. That's the only thing I know to object to.
Okay.
Because I was not given that opportunity, which was an agreement between the parties.
Response.
Judge, I don't appreciate the implications that they're making. What I would proffer with this witness is, we spoke yesterday. I asked her if she had any change in her opinion about any of the diagnoses. She said no. And I asked, well, then my position, my understanding of her position is that it doesn't matter whether she had PTSD or not, because what Ms. Boone said at the time was that she zipped Mr. Torres up into the suitcase. They were both laughing, And once he was already secured in the suitcase, she became angry and then did all the things that she did. My expected answers from the doctor based on a very brief conversation yesterday and this morning was that if I asked her whether or not PTSD or BSS had anything to do with this particular case, that her answer would be, it doesn't matter because of what she stated happened. I'm not asking her about her diagnosis of PTSD. I'm not going to be going into narcissism. I'm not going to go into whether or not she ever delineated the difference between adjustment disorder or anxiety, because my understanding of what she told me was that none of this matters. None of this matters because of what she said to us during the evaluation.
But the question was, and I may have to ask Madam Court Reporter to read it back, but my memory of what the question was is, have you formulated an opinion with regard to PTSD?
And my expected answer was, it doesn't matter because of what she said during the evaluation.
Okay. Unfortunately, that was not the answer that came from the witness. The answer was a definitive no.
Attorney's fault.
I'm not casting blame. I'm just,
I actually didn't, when I heard that, I did not register it as a definitive no. I think that was misinterpreted. But I agree with some other people. I think the judge was just being careful, you know. But I disagree. And again, we'll look at this very closely because I have it laid out very, you know, like specifically and closely in a very brief format, which we'll see, but it's important to have the context of this video. So we're almost done watching this.
right, we're going back over of what was asked and what was said. Okay.
Yes.
Judge, and that's his position, that post-traumatic stress disorder that doesn't apply in this case, and that he, I'm sure, reflected his opinion to the expert. But that doesn't mean that that's my opinion, that post-traumatic stress does not apply.
That's irrelevant for the purposes of this argument.
Well, their discussions and him feeling like it didn't apply.
Okay, as an officer of the court, he just told me he spoke to the expert yesterday and the opinions hadn't changed. And the opinion that was offered at the deposition was, I'm not sure.
That's true, Bruce.
And based on what he had proffered as to what he expected the answer to be, the answer was not going to be any different. It's not applicable. It doesn't matter because of what she told me. That's unfortunately not the answer that was given. So what is it that you're asking me to do at this time, Mr. Owens?
I'm asking, I don't know if we need to proffer the entire testimony of this witness, because opinions and diagnoses have apparently changed. I think I have a right to take a second deposition before she testifies.
What other opinions, Mr. J, if any, are going to be offered by Dr. Werner?
Can I just proffer?
Yes.
All right, you've been present for all this hearing, yes, doctor?
Yes.
Am I misrepresenting any of our conversations?
No.
All right. And so if I ask you if battered spouse syndrome or PTSD has any relationship to the facts of the case as the defendant relayed them to you, what would be your answer?
That it's not related to the incident as she reported it.
Okay. And if I ask you, therefore, if there were any prior instances of violence, would that change your opinion? What would your answer be?
No.
And if you reviewed any other materials, would that change your opinion based on what she told you about what happened that evening?
No.
That's it.
Judge, number one, she's given a legal opinion. Number two, it's a discovery violation.
Disagree that was a legal opinion. Hard disagree.
What is the legal opinion?
That post-traumatic stress disorder doesn't apply in this case.
Dr. Harper testified it did, and that's what experts do.
Yeah, exactly. That's what experts do. Especially like psychiatrists or psychologists, that's what they're going to do. If like she didn't say anything relating to PTSD or PTSD symptoms, if she didn't describe any symptoms of PTSD, that's not, this is not like that out of the box. You know what I mean? Like it's not, I feel like that's not really a legal opinion. That is a professional mental health opinion that those things don't apply because those symptoms or triggers were not present. But again, that's just my opinion. I'm not a lawyer.
I would like to have known that, and that was going to be her opinion before today.
That's not a change in testimony.
you. That's-
Where is that a change in the
So you're
deposition?
gonna have to read the whole transcript. I asked.
No. This is a 87-page transcript. You're objecting. You have the burden to establish
Correct,
your
your dad.
objection.
Give me a minute. I'll read through it and find where I asked.
Give me a minute to read through this 87-page deposition.
I mean, this isn't the first time I've looked at this deposition. The state provided it to me when we had the hearing on whether or not battered spouse would be permitted. And the state provided specific highlights for me to look at. At no point in time did the defense say, look at this, look at this, look at this in her deposition when we had that hearing. So other than what's being provided to me right now and what's been testified to this morning, I don't know what opinions she has. All I know in coming into today is what the basis of her opinion was, specifically with regard to any of the statements that Ms. Boone had provided, which is the whole crux of the state's motion to prevent battered spouse from coming into evidence.
Judge, if you look at page 66, line 20. Let me know when you're there, Judge.
Hang on. Yes, sir.
Page 66, line 20, question. Okay, so other than the couple of hours that you intend to maybe reflect on your notes and anything else, any other work that you intend to do on this case? Answer 23, no, sir. Not that I'm aware of.
Equality, no, I
Line
didn't. I
24,
didn't.
Question. And you've expressed all your opinions, at least generally here today. Answer, page 67, line 1. Yes, sir. Question. Then I go into fees. Then on 67, line 7, question. Just double dog sure. You admit that you have no other opinions other than the ones you.
I just want to make sure everybody knows that he actually did say double dog sure right there.
Line 10, answer that I've been asked about. If I'm asked something else, that I'll offer it. Number 12. Question. And you've been provided all the resources.
Oh, no.
You need to
If you
rely
find it,
on
send it
and
to me.
express your opinions. Line 14, answer. I have based an opinion on the resources that I've been provided. If there's other things out there to be provided that may or may not change my opinion. I believe it's a discovery violation because I should have been notified that there was going to be a change in opinions.
Okay, so that is about the end of what we need to see of that. The thing is, like, he believes it's a discovery violation. There was no because there was a change of opinions. My take on this is there was not a change of opinion. There was a change of context in which the question was asked, like a different question was asked, or the question was asked differently. Her opinion did not change, and I'll show you why. So first things first, I'm going to pull this up on the actual transcript of the deposition. Okay. And here is the courtroom testimony. 1 second. Just make sure I'm getting the right. Okay, got it. Okay. So, here's what was said in court. Question from the attorney. In this particular case, did you require any additional information to reach your conclusion about the relationship between battered spouse syndrome and the events of this evening? Answer. I based my opinion on the information that I had. Certainly, if there was more information, my opinion would be subject to change. Question, what was your opinion? Answer, my opinion was she did not give me enough information to diagnose her with post-traumatic stress disorder at the time I evaluated her at the jail. Okay. Here is the transcript deposition. So the argument here is that this testimony, what we just read, is different than the opinion she shared in her deposition, which is what we're about to read. And then we'll look at them together. Question, but you don't believe that she suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder in your opinion? Answer, no. I would have to look back through my notes to see if she fully met that criteria. Question, can you explain why you don't think she suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder? Answer, no, I didn't say one way or the other. I would have to look back through my notes for that. Question, is that something that you may in the future give an opinion about after some time reflecting and reviewing your notes? Answer, I may. Question, okay, and that's something you will let the lawyers know about if that changes? Answer, yes. So he's saying that she did change her answer, did change her opinion, and that she did not let them know about it. Okay. You may have already answered this. You said that you felt like she met the criteria for this anxiety disorder. Answer, no, she says, so she has the attributes and discussed with me that she has anxiety and symptoms. Wow, Lauren. Symptoms of anxiety. And we discussed that. So whether those symptoms are attributable to generalized anxiety disorder, which is that she said she's been diagnosed with in the past, as opposed to an adjustment disorder based on what's going on right now. What would be the criteria that you would look for to determine whether somebody suffered from an anxiety disorder? Again, generalized anxiety, feelings of restlessness, uneasiness. So all of the general symptoms of anxiety, but it's typically related to numerous with generalized anxiety disorder. The anxiety is not specific to one specific thing. It's generalized, just like it says. Anything can make you anxious, as opposed to an adjustment disorder. It's related to just what's going on right now. And what this doctor is saying makes perfect sense. So think about adjustment disorder as just what the name says. So there's a new variable, there's a new environment, new situation, and you're adjusting to that. And the fact that you are adjusting to this new situation is what's causing you anxiety. Your anxiety is centered around this or exists within this change. Basically, the change is what causes your anxiety. Now, generalized anxiety is something that you just have as like an everyday, it can be like an everyday response, right? So I have some generalized anxiety to where like I'm just, sitting here at my house like I normally do. It's my daily routine. Yet I'm anxious about some things because I have stuff that I need to get done. None of those things are a pattern. They're not related to each other. There's just like a bunch of things that come up that sometimes make me feel anxious. So it's not that I'm adjusting to anything. I just have anxiety. You know what I mean? So it's different. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up on these comments here. Ooh, lemon sponge cake with vanilla beans. What the heck? That sounds complicated to me. Owens is a pet lawyer. People who change jobs can sometimes have adjustment disorder / anxiety or have to change schools, move, etc. Agreed. So, and it's not like if you've had generalized anxiety disorder, you can never have adjustment issues. And it's not like if you've ever had an adjustment problem, you can never have generalized anxiety disorder. For example, and I know this is kind of personal, but when I was younger, say like 14, 15, and I was changing from my school to a different school for high school, and I didn't know anyone else around me, right? And I was not used to those buildings and like where I had to go to class and stuff like that. I was not used to like doing things with the rules of that particular institution, that kind of stuff. Like I was very anxious about the change. I was very anxious about like doing things differently than I had for the past 10 years because I went from pre-K to 8th grade. I went to the same school. So that was a very specific anxiety. It was an adjustment issue. And adjustment disorder can come with depressed mood and anxiety, or it can come with one or the other. But it's specific to a change. So, right. And like now I would say that I have more of a generalized anxiety. It's not always like lots of people have anxiety, right? It's not always a disorder. But people who have generalized anxiety disorder, they're not like, it's not, you can't pinpoint it like that, right? Because there's a bunch of different things that make you feel anxious. Don't catch up on the comments, they will make you hungry. Oh my gosh. I have meta anxiety. I'm anxious about having anxiety. Oh my god. That brings me back, dude. All right. Let me pull up this other video that I wanted to show, and this one's very short, so don't worry. Before we do that, I do want to show just the stuff side by side so you can see. Okay, so. And the commenter on Reddit who posted this deposition testimony Q&A, Flourish Savages 322, thank you for that. Deposition testimony. Question, but you don't believe that she suffers from PTSD in your opinion? No, I would have to look back through my notes to see if she met that criteria. Question, can you explain why you don't think she suffers from PTSD? No, I didn't say one way or the other. I would have to look back through my notes for that. Question, is that something you may in the future give an opinion about after reflecting or reviewing your notes? Answer, I may. Question, and that's something you will let the lawyers know about if that changes. Answer, yes. So that's what we just read. That's the deposition. And again, here's the courtroom testimony. So one after the other, you can see, I don't think the opinion changed at all here. Courtroom testimony. Question, in this particular case, did you require any additional information to reach your conclusion about the relationship between battered spouse syndrome and the events of this evening? Answer, I based my opinion on the information that I had. Certainly, if there was more information, my opinion would be subject to change. Question, what was your opinion? Answer, sorry. My opinion was that she did not give me enough information to diagnose her with post-traumatic stress disorder at the time that I evaluated her at the jail. To me, that seems to be the same. There was no definitive yes or no at any time to me. And if there was a no, it was a no. She didn't give me enough context to provide this diagnosis, but I am not saying outright no. That's my take. One second, guys. And I'll pull up this last thing here. Okay. All right. Hi, Maureen. What's up? Okay, so this last clip here is short, and it's going to show you why I was so mad about the emotional outburst comment. When they're asking for a new trial, they're saying that one of the family members had an emotional outburst that would have swayed the jury. And listening to the lawyer describe this is infuriating to me. I will never be able to see him as anything but a douchebag, so I admittedly am biased after watching this. But I think you might be too after you see it. All right. Let me just pull myself off to the side here. Yeah, there we go.
Consider Boone's
And this is just, I'm sorry, but this is just heinous. Like, this is just heinous.
entitled to a fair trial. I think that right has been compromised here today. I don't know who's scheduled to put the two detectives on the front row with the Torres family, the family of the victim. But they had to have known to tell them that the suitcase video, which has been around for 4.5 years, was going to be played during opening statement. And the state attorney's office or the sheriff's department had to advise them, or the victim's advocate had to advise them, that if they couldn't take it in front of a jury that's trying to decide the case, they needed to get out of the courtroom. Now, what happened here today should not ever happen. There should be safeguards in place. There's no room for this after 2 weeks of murder trial for something like that to happen.
So this douchebag is saying there's no room for a family member of the murdered victim to have an emotional reaction to the video of their loved one being murdered. Okay, so you hear that, right? And you might think, I can handle it, or I know what happened, I can handle it, I can get through it. But when it's actually put in front of your face, when you're in the courtroom, when you're finally at the trial, which has been put off for so fucking long because of this, like, not literal, like, not clinically insane lunatic, but geez, a lunatic nonetheless. And because of this lunatic, like, and justice has not been served, and you think that you can handle it, but those emotions come flooding back as you start to see it in this environment, this emotionally charged environment. He's saying basically that that person is like doing something disgraceful, that there's no room for somebody to do that, that it's inexplicable for somebody to have that kind of reaction just because they knew what was coming. Yes, they knew what was coming, but like, it doesn't necessarily mean they knew exactly how they would react in that moment. It doesn't mean they knew everything that would be talked about in trial and how that emotion might build up over that time. That nobody's perfect in grief, right? So especially when the trial's been put off for years, it's taken years to get to this trial. Okay. And you don't know how people, handle grief or the timeline that they're handling it on. And honestly, like, if like, I'm not gonna honestly, I can't really relate to these people because I've never, luckily, fortunately for me, I've never been in this situation, and I hope I never have to be. But I think that it's just inexplicable to me to kind of force your expectations for how someone should react, based on your experience, Mr. Owens, of what, reading some papers from your lunatic client. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm getting lost in thought here. I lose my train of thought quite often, to be honest. But what I'm trying to say is, it was absolutely unfair of him to speak this way about the family member. And that's just my opinion. And maybe he's just doing his job, but I think that he's a dick. So, and I'm entitled to that opinion. So, he's not done yet, guys.
One of the Torres members of the family audibly, during the 2-minute suitcase video, expressed some kind of emotional reaction. I look back, he or she were bent over in agony, physical.
The fact that he's angrily describing how a mother reacted to seeing her son's death on a video. What an asshole.
Pain. The physical pain followed the audible announcement. You can't unring that bell. That's their responsibility to ensure that kind of thing doesn't happen, especially when they know they're.
I don't know if you guys remember when Larry Nassar was on trial, but the father of one of the victims got up and tried to attack Larry Nassar during the trial. And honestly, that was understandable. But this woman, his client, murdered that mother's son. And he is bitching because the mother cried about her son being murdered and how it's on videotape. So I have a very hard time getting through this and not just stopping to point out what an asshole I think this guy is right now.
They're going to show a video, and the family of the victim is on the front row. I've never heard of such. I asked for a mistrial.
Response.
I've never heard of such a request. The victim's family has the right to be here. They were advised as to what will be used during closing argument.
And Boxing for Life says she didn't make much noise and quickly excused herself. I agree. It sounds like that's what happened. I didn't really understand either what they were talking about because I didn't really know what was going on there. Like I said, I was working, so I couldn't really watch everything super closely. I was kind of listening a lot of the time, and I didn't get to see everything. So I undermeant when you stood says his mom was trying to muffle her sob. I didn't even hear it the first time I saw it. I didn't know what it was until the replay, and we knew what to look/listen for. So I guess I'll have to, go back and do that. But that's still just like so sad. Okay, guys, let's listen to the rest of this piece here.
I cannot make a decision for the victim's family and the homicide survivors as to whether or not they believe they can handle it. She clearly, or he, I don't know, couldn't, and I believe the appropriate thing was done. They left the court. But again, to say this is intentional sabotage and all the accusations that continuously get made are unsubstantiated, and it does not warrant a mistrial.
The caption there said MRI, but he says it does not warrant a mistrial.
People get warned, and sometimes they misjudge their own emotions. I don't understand what test we are expected to run on homicide survivors.
Agreed. 100%.
So the motion should be denied.
Motion's denied. Jury's going to be back in about 13 minutes, counsel. So we'll reconvene at that point in time.
And as we know, she was found guilty, which she should have been. So she deserved that. And I hope that the sentencing does happen on December 2nd. And when it does, I will be happy to cover it. But I think that's it for now, guys. I have a lot of work to do still, and it's almost 10 o'clock. So, but I wanted to come in and talk about this because I saw it pop up today. I know it's, been a couple of days since the news broke or whatever, and the deposition transcript came out, but I did want to talk about it. And I am leaving on Sunday to go to California, and then I will be in Australia for about 6 days. And then I come back to California, and then I'm there for another day, and then I come back to Florida. So I'm going to be kind of all over the map. This month is a busy month for me. But I will be streaming at least once or twice when I'm in Australia, and definitely at least once when I'm in California. So there should be a couple coming up in the next week. I said this in an earlier post, but I don't know if everybody's said or not said, seen it. I will be doing upcoming in the next week from then on, 1 or 2 times a week. I'm going to do a stream where I make content where I'm like commenting on like some interesting or funny stories I see. And I will make those streams members only. So members can watch it live and comment, and they'll see the whole thing. But I do want to make sure that I'm not just putting everything, behind the paywall. So it's just a bonus for people who are showing support. And I will take some excerpts or clips from those streams and put them into shorter, like public videos that everyone can watch. But I just want to let you guys know what's going on. I'll do probably, I'm thinking maybe Monday. Because I'm gonna have to work a couple days while I'm in California because I work remote. On Monday or so, I'll do my first one where the members can come in and watch and chat in the stream and like give suggestions for what to look at or read or look for. And we'll have conversations and stuff like that. But then everybody will be able to watch like kind of like a highlight reel that I'll post publicly a little bit later. So it's not going to be a problem. If you're not a member, that's fine. I just want to make sure I'm doing something a little extra for the people who have shown support. So the thing is, I'm not doing anything that I haven't already been doing, basically. It's just that I'm including people into more of my process, if that makes sense. So I'm going to make sure that I'm not doing anything like too exclusive. I'm not doing anything huge where the people have to pay to see it, but if you want to, it'll just be like a fun extra thing that we can do together. So that'll be cool. Natalia, thank you for becoming a member, and I look forward to seeing you in those streams. I appreciate you so much. And thank you again, Karen, for the super chat. You're awesome. And Karen, I appreciate you always being around because I see you pop up a lot. So thanks, Winks, and the rest of my mods for being here, especially Bruce, who was here during Wine Club, and Omar, who gave some commentary. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you next time. I'm not sure when that will be. I leave on Sunday, so maybe I can get one in on Saturday. We'll see. All right. Thanks, everybody. See ya.